wrecked by the best fuck silence!
The Disciples audio animation by Stereo Stages.
Out of the many gods who have thrown the world into chaos, I find one to be the most disturbing. This god, or so they call her, proves in my mind that these entities are nothing divine. She was preceded by a plague, not the biblical plague of locusts, but one of spiders. This plague was limited to New York City, the reason for which is still unknown. Spiders began appearing more numerous. At first, it was nothing too far out of the ordinary. But every day that went by, there seemed to be more, and they were behaving oddly. People would post pictures online of several hundred spiders collecting in a mass in the corner of the ceiling in the subway station. Soon, this became commonplace. At first, they didn't bother anyone, but you'd see lines of them marching to meet their kin. Weeks went by, and their numbers grew. Initially, you'd mainly see American house spiders and several other spiders common to the area. However, as more spiders appeared, there were many spotted that weren't even found on this continent, such as the baboon spider, a venomous tarantula, and the orb weaver, both found in Africa. But their behavior began to change again. More of them started making their way into people's homes. They would crawl through windows and under doors. Again, they were not initially aggressive, but would follow and watch people with single-minded devotion. To say that it was creepy would be like saying the sun is bright. People who killed the Watchers awoke to find dozens, if not hundreds, of spiders on their bedroom ceilings and walls, staring at them like small statues. Naturally, this was the tipping point of escalation. One man, who was later identified as Mark Sutherland, became enraged by the watching arachnids. With a baseball bat in hand, he destroyed his apartment, along with every spider he could reach. The fight spilled out into the sidewalk as spiders swarmed him. Mr. Sutherland stomped and swung his bat until he couldn't any longer. In a war of attrition, numbers always beat strength. They covered his body and crawled down his throat. The man's screams sounded like broken glass. When passers-by tried to help him, they were met with dozens of painful bites that immediately turned to festering boils. This ensured the man was to meet his fate alone. All anyone could do was stand helplessly and watch. Some recorded as he was enveloped by a growing, squirming mass of arachnids. To everyone's surprise and horror, the man's body began to move as the spiders carried him away down an alley. A wall of black bodies with legs reared aggressively deterred anyone from going after him. If they'd known the significance of that moment, someone probably would have. The 4 people who'd been bit were hospitalized. The boiling, necrotic flesh was the least of their worries. They each fell into a catatonic, zombie-like state. One of them picked at his lesioned arm until he'd savaged the flesh and exposed the radius. After being restrained, he showed no reaction, no sign of cognition or pain. These extreme reactions, coupled with the attack and abduction of Mark Sutherland, who was still missing at the time, prompted an equally extreme reaction from the government. An immediate evacuation order was put into effect, but as citizens scrambled to flee the city, it quickly became gridlocked to the point of impassibility. Something about the panic and desperation seemed to whip the spiders into a frenzy. They surged out from the sewers and subways in a scurrying flood. But now, among their ranks, were massive arachnids the size of dinner plates. Chaos ruled the streets as hundreds of thousands of spiders emerged from below ground. They swarmed and bit those that ran, leaving them seizing on the pavement. Those hiding in cars only lasted moments more than those on the streets, as spiders poured in through their vents. The arachnids swept through the streets like a tidal wave, leaving motionless, boil-covered bodies in their wake. It was a matter of hours before teams of hazmat suit-wearing government agents were dispatched with flamethrowers. Initially, it looked like they were going to reclaim the city from the crawling horde of invaders. But those men suffered for each and every spider they killed. In a matter of moments, they were overwhelmed, and the spiders had burrowed through their suits. Streams of small bodies poured into the men's mouths, so thick they were unable to even scream. Inside, the spiders began tearing at the stomach walls. One or two wouldn't have been able to do much, but hundreds, if not thousands, eviscerated the men as if they were made of paper. Like a living aura, the spiders swarmed around and through the men, tearing holes through their flailing bodies until they lay motionless. Of course, the military wanted to take action immediately, but the civilian presence was far too heavy for approved use of ballistic weaponry. The only thing they could do at the time, which was intended to be a temporary solution of containment, was erect a manned border around the city. Any spiders approaching were to be met with either chemical agents or incendiary devices. All civilians were to quickly evacuate to the nearest checkpoint, and no one was allowed in. With the initial building of the city's blockade came an inevitable panic. People who still had loved ones within the city seized this small window to try and rescue them. It has been said that during the time the perimeter was created, more people made it in than out. That first night, the city was a war zone, and humanity lost. The next morning, news choppers flew over the city, capturing footage the only safe way. Buildings still blazed and smoked. Bodies littered the street like refuse. Webs covered entire blocks in some areas. Everything was eerily still, as if the raging war the night before had taken a break. Then, one of the news choppers flew over Central Park. Though it was summer, at first glance you'd have thought it was the morning after a snowstorm. Every square inch was blanketed in sticky white webbing. Strung up by his arms and legs, 20 feet off the ground, was Mark Sutherland, the Herald. Although his limbs were covered in thick strands of webbing, his torso and head remained unobstructed. The lower half of his jaw had been torn off, allowing a steady stream of spiders to crawl down his throat unimpeded. By the time the horrific scene had been discovered, his stomach had become so distended, it was borderline inhuman. There had to have been tens of thousands of arachnids within the man's body, swarming and writhing. You could see the moving mass under his skin that threatened to rip with each and every twitch from within. Mark would periodically lose consciousness from the pain and horror and reawaken to the nightmare anew. Tears streamed from his bloodshot eyes, but there was nothing he could do to stop the flow of arachnid bodies pouring into him. The presence of the manned helicopters only exacerbated the sense of hopelessness, as the silent understanding between them was that nothing could be done. With the arrival of the cameras and the world's subsequent attention, the herald ushered in the new god. The stream of spiders flowing into the restrained man's mouth turned into a flood. Hundreds of creeping black bodies a second forced themselves down his throat, extending it past the limits of biological elasticity. His stomach began to swell even further, 5 feet in diameter, 7, 10. His body grew past the point of his limbs, the writhing mass of flesh swelling even further as the spiders continued to engorge him. Soon the invasion stopped, and Mark's body was swelled to the size of a truck. Only his jawless head was not buried among the churning flesh. Images of the mutilated man who still somehow, unfortunately, clung to life were plastered on news networks worldwide. What happened next is why Mark Sutherland is known as the Herald. The lines holding him aloft that had begun to sag under his new size pulled tight. Mark's body seized violently, then again, and once more, each time pulling the trees and the ground with such violent force that it seemed to shake even the heavens. Something seemed to shift in the atmosphere, as if this area had suddenly become part of another planet. A large, pointed object started to emerge from the man's throat, a fine point at first, inching its way out, but quickly becoming increasingly thick. 15 inches stuck out and was thick enough at this point to stretch his torn face to even more grotesque proportions. The thing retracted back down his throat, allowing him to take in one final, pained, bloody breath, followed by a gurgling whimper before the object shot from his throat and reached 30 feet into the sky. A second pointed column erupted from the bloodied, broken throat hole, extending into the sky next to the first. These black columns began to fold in half until both reached the ground. Then 2 more shot from the ruined body and mirrored the actions of the first, followed by another pair, and then another. All was still for a minute, and the image of these huge 8 legs protruding impossibly from the mutilated body of a strung-up man haunts not only my mind, but internet message boards to this very day. The legs arched and pulled, and the fleshy cocoon ripped away to reveal an arachnid body the size of a small house. How this thing had come from the inside of that man is something I doubt we'll ever understand. But it did, and that fact is irrefutable. This is how the man once known as Mark Sutherland became the Herald of Akhokek, also known as the Mother. People often call her Akhokek because it's similar to the noise her stridulating Calicera makes as she looms over her thrall. The god's carapace is black, horned, and impenetrable. 8 eyes glow red with power. 2 are more pronounced and bigger than the other 6. She uses these to devastating effect. While the Spider God is equally as indestructible as her kin, her true power lies within her brood. Under her belly is a colony of small holes, from which she births harvestmen with a horrific ability. These quarter-sized spiders crawl into the ears of humans and take control of their bodies. Akhokek seems to be able to control the humans after that, though they retain memories and at least a replication of their personality. New York belongs to the Spider God. Her borders grow every day by way of thick web tunnels that are highly resistant to flames and ferry her brood in thrall throughout the city. Although her spiders grow to unearthly proportions, it's the humans she uses to truly monstrous ends. The first of which, and arguably the most dangerous, are the scouts. No different in any other way from any other person, save for the small arachnid within their brain that allows the mother to control them. These scouts are used for many different purposes, such as luring other humans within the Spider God's domain. They are most successful at bringing family members of the once autonomous human to the scout's location, often calling them and begging for help. The impromptu border around the god's domain was hastily made to keep spiders in, not people out, so lethal force is not taken against those foolish enough to sneak in if they are not stopped. When the scouts are no longer capable of bringing in new humans for one reason or another, they join the assimilated. Through an unknown process, Akhokek melds the humans with the spiders, or spider DNA. She seems to be of great intelligence and keeps these subhuman nightmares from the public eye. We think she understands it will lessen, if not eliminate, the steady stream of fresh playthings she lures into her borders. But several have been seen, if only for a moment. One is a blurry, still image of an arachnid body with a human torso in place of the thorax and abdomen. Its head appears to be a haphazard mix of human and spider with both normal teeth and chelicera. Guards along the border have reported brief glimpses of the assimilated that appear to be spiders with a human head for a body. What's more troubling is that those horrors plead for help with human voices, crying and begging for someone to come help them just within the spider's domain. Another clever way for the mother to grow her collection of thralls. There's been rumors of single human bodies being used to create multiple abominations. Sometimes she keeps lured humans without even implanting them with a control spider. She enjoys toying with them. It's said that she has nearly an entire apartment building full of these slaves that she forces to warm her with body heat on cold nights. Those who refuse, fight, or outlive their usefulness either become food, or worse, join the assimilated. A fate, I imagine, worse than death. These horrors are only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Akhokek, mother and god of the spiders. More is discovered daily, making the things we already knew seem mild in comparison. As her numbers and territory grow, the question of what can be done seems to be shifting to, where can we run?
Oh yeah. You already know. It's your boy, the disciple. What's good, boo-boo? What the fuck it do, dude? What do you think of that shit, man? I mean, spiders. Ugh. Fucking sick, man. Not cool sick, like disgusting sick. Tell me, dude, tell me right fucking now that spiders are from Earth. Go ahead. Oh wait. Tell me. You know that's bullshit. Dude, they got 8 fucking legs. They go fucking skid around. They rear up at you. They attack people. Like, bro, you don't even weigh a fucking ounce. And you're gonna come at me? And this dude thinks like, he's sitting there like, yeah, I can fucking take him. And now I'm thinking, shit, can he? Oh fuck, he's gonna try. Oh shit, oh fuck. Ah! Ah! And then you fucking run, and you just throw stuff and you get away, man. That's all you can do. And they got 8 eyes? What do you mean you have 8 eyes? 8. Really? 8 eyes. Okay? You only need 2. Arguably 1. Some animals don't even fucking need eyes. And these little bastards have 8? Dude, please. Get out of here. You're an alien. Okay? Not cool. Also, in case anyone was wondering, the word of the day is Calicera. Doesn't that sound dirty? Ooh, let me see your Calicera, girl. Ooh, yeah. Well, FYI, it's the, little spider mandible things. They're not mandibles. Those are different. They're Calicera. Ooh, yeah. Now it sounds kind of gross. Yeah, no, it does. Also, stridulating. That's, really does also sound dirty. But it's not. It's like, you know, when you hear crickets or, cicadas making noise, you know, or fucking whatever they do. You know what it is. They move legs or other parts together to vibrate and make noise, and that's called stridulating. So we put those 2 words together, and we can stridulate our Caliceras. That's gross, man. It just sounds fucking whack, dude. Yeah. Let's move on with our lives. Anyways, that's the video. Like, comment, subscribe, share. I love ya.